What is your best, holy crap that actually worked, moment? I did CPR on a hamster. It worked. Our department was called out to a structure fire. We got on scene within a couple minutes and 2 other engines were already on scene. One team doing a search and the other working the fire from the inside. I was the new guy and they needed help getting personal items out. We would ask people if they had pets or photo albums that we could try to get out. We figured out that there were hamsters in a cage in the dining room. We went in and grabbed the cage and some photo albums and brought them out. One of the hamsters in the cage was running around like crazy. The other was on his side, looking rather dead. I brought the cage over to the kid that lived in the house. He saw the dead hamster and started to cry. I tried apologizing, explaining that it wouldn't have been painful. The kid looks up at me, asks me to take the hamster to the ambulance and try and fix him. By this time the fire was out. Everyone was safe and we had an extra medic unit on scene to help check the firefighters after they were working hard inside the building. I looked over at my chief and he tells me go for it. Show the kid we tried everything to try and save his hamster so he can have a sense of closure. We took the kid's family over to the unused medic unit and put the hamster on a chucks pad on the gurney. I had a feline O2 mask for when we pull cats out of burning building. It was small, but it fit over the top half the hamster. With tiny little chest compressions going and oxygen flowing, we sat there for a couple minutes doing the best CPR we could. The kid's family was at the back of the open ambulance all cheering the little hamster on. We figured we would go for a few minutes and then tell the kids we did everything we could. So sorry. All of a sudden I see the hamster is trying to roll over. Holy crap. The hamster is actually coming back from hamster heaven. I picked the little guy up and had him in the palm of my hand with the mask blowing O2 into his face. I was rubbing his little belly and he was twitching a bit. I was getting excited at this point, and then all of a sudden the hamster rolls over and clamps down on the webbing of skin between my thumb and forefinger. I had the urge to throw the thing, but keep my cool and pull him off my hand. We gave the hamster back to the kid and told him that he might want to have a vet take a look as we couldn't really treat the guy very well. About a week later we got a card in the mail from the kid and family. In crayon was a drawing of an ambulance with a giant hamster in the bed in the back. It was adorable. I assume it is still on the wall somewhere in that department. For months afterwards I got gag gifts from the other firefighters of stuffed hamsters with heart monitor leads hooked to its chest. It was one of the most interesting experiences I had. Man, that's cute. Credits to you for not slinging the little sucker into the wall of the ambulance when he bit down on the webbing of your hand. About 15 years ago a buddy and I had to be rescued from a mountain, but the search and rescue team were having trouble locating us. They wouldn't attempt the rescue until they saw us due to the weather conditions and avalanche risk. I had the random idea to take pictures of the snow at our feet with the disposable camera I had on me. That did the trick. Apparently the flash reflecting off the snow could be seen all the way at the base of the mountain. That thought may have saved my life that night. I believe if you hit the right part of a disposable camera just right, you can force the flash to trigger without taking a picture. Of course these days we have a light on our phones, but still. Got pulled over because my headlight was out. Even though where I am cops no longer give fix-it tickets, I asked that he give it a few whacks with his flashlight to see if it'd turn it on. It did. I got to make a cop giggle and I drove home safely. I was at a friend's house maybe 25 years ago. He knew I knew electronics, so he asked me to fix his TV. I said look, designing computers is not the same thing as fixing TVs, he insisted. So I took the TV apart. I noticed a big transistor off color. I wrote down the number, went home and looked up the number and discovered it was an NPN transistor. So I searched my scrap pile for a similar transistor. Well, an NPN transistor with the same footprint. Went back to his house, replaced the funny looking transistor with the one I had and the damned TV worked. I was amazed I had fixed it. I'm imagining a Tom Hanks Castaway fire moment. I was in India and really wanted to go to a movie. In a newspaper, I saw Seabiscuit was playing and tried to get a rickshaw driver to take me there. A couple hours and a couple different rickshaws later, I finally got to the proper movie theater, well outside the city. When I arrived there were people milling about and plenty of taxis and rickshaws outside the theater, so I thought I'd have no trouble getting back. I watched the movie and when I exited the theater, it was like a nuclear bomb had gone off. Lights were off, No people anywhere. No cars nearby. I walked out to the highway, not sure exactly where I was or how to get back to my hotel. Finally I flagged down a jeep carrying people from villages to the city, and the drivers spoke just a little English. I said I needed to go to the city, several million people. Huge city, but then I realized I didn't know the address or even the name of the hotel. I did remember that it was by the end of 2 bridges, and closer to the one that was narrower. So I kept telling the driver to go to the narrow bridge. After a few rounds of that, they finally acted like they knew where I needed to go, and we rode in the dark for what seemed like 20 miles. All the other passengers gradually got out and soon it was just me and the 2 drivers. We whined through the city, gradually getting closer to the center, and then suddenly the car stopped and we were right outside my hotel. I paid them probably way too much and fell asleep as soon as I got to my room, completely confused how I got to the right place so easily. When I woke up the next morning and went out for breakfast, I walked across the narrow bridge and noticed a plaque with the bridge's name. It was the narrow bridge. I still can't believe the coincidence. After that, I've always made sure to grab a few business cards from any hotel I stay at. I picked a desk lock with a small flathead screwdriver and a paper clip. 25 XP. Used a Yale key that was for my back gate on a Yale lock in Botanic Gardens in Belfast so I could take a shortcut. Worked, saved myself 20 minutes on a commute. I was in the Navy and stationed in Japan. When we flew home we did not need a passport, just our military ID. Well, I was flying home and had somehow lost my military ID in transit to the airport. I managed to get through a check-in and security with my US driver's license and my leave papers. When I reached Canada I was pulled into a tiny room by US Customs though. They couldn't believe I got on the flight either. This was after 9/11. Wrapping my Xbox 360 in towels and letting it overheat to fix the red rings of death. We brought a printer back to life by baking the insides in our oven. I'll never forget that morning, my father in his business attire, 2 oven mitts, and pulling warm, fresh chips out of the oven. Moved to Indianapolis without a job lined up. Decided to just rent a mailbox and put it on my job applications that I blanket applied for in my car while sitting in a McDonald's parking lot. Had 8 interviews lined up by the end of the day. I once wrote a research paper in high school which got an A+. It had all the necessary references and bibliography formatting and everything. In college, I had been given an assignment to write a research paper about the same topic, so I turned in the same paper again. I got an A. The paper was about cloning. A buddy and I, after a long night of underage drinking, were in the back alley on the same block where I worked. Suddenly, police spotlight. Cops asked what were we doing. Oh, just trying to get into my shop here to get some things before going home. Slip the key into the keyhole. Click, door opens. Hop inside. Cheap but landlord used the same key for the whole block. It was mid-August and I was in a park near Sudbury around Killarney National Park. We had to do some clear cutting in a horrible bramble bush area infested with horse flies. Close to where we worked there was a tool shed we were warned off and had thousands of flies inside. There was no way we could get our tools out of there. We brought some gasoline with us and I found a glass bottle. So I filled it up with gas, put a gas-soaked rag in it, and had someone run up to the tool shed to pull the door open and run away. I lit the Molotov cocktail and hurled it inside. This is what I was counting on. I had actually seen Molotov cocktails go off before and they usually burn themselves out pretty quickly. The gas just sits on the surface of wherever it lands and burns down to nothing. Most of it is consumed right away in a big fireball, and that's exactly what happened. We had a huge butt fireball and instantly killed several thousand flies. The tool shed, although run down and filthy, was perfectly intact and so were the tools, and the lingering smoke actually helped clear the whole area of flies. Before I die I want to throw a Molotov cocktail. Cop here. During my first week on the job I witnessed a strong-armed robbery during a local music festival. The robber punched a woman in the face, grabbed her purse and ran away. Me and my partner immediately gave chase, but the robber was a fast little sucker and there was no way we were going to catch him. My partner flung his baton frisbee style at his legs which became entangled, causing him to fall. The robber actually gave us props when he was in the back of our car. Horrible tactics from a safety standpoint, but it worked. At the restaurant I worked at, there would occasionally be someone asking to turn down the music. It was always at a reasonable volume, actually pretty low because it was a small place, and if I turned it down even more guests would instead hear the kitchen's music, which was never family friendly. So one day, when a guest asked me to turn it down, I walked over to the stereo and mimed turning the volume knob, not actually doing anything at all. I looked over at the customer and she gave me a thumbs up and was happy as a clam. The human brain is hysterical. Most office thermostats are fake for this exact reason. The illusion of control is usually enough to satisfy. I've definitely just smacked my electronics and had them work. The all percussive maintenance. One time my internet didn't work. I clicked fix this issue and it freaking worked. No proof. You just have to believe. I sometimes open books up to the exact page I need without a bookmark. The rest of my life is a failure. My car broke down with smoke coming out of it and coolant pouring out of the engine. I took it to a garage who told me it was going to be around £150 200 to fix. My dad said that was balls and to buy some bars leaks and pour it half and half in the coolant. I thought, yeah right, an £8 bottle of this stuff is gonna fix it. That was 2 years ago. Car still running like a dream. That stuff is balls in a can. I was in a supermarket once, and a very pretty girl that I had met maybe 2 or 3 times made a beeline in my direction, nearly knocking into me. She grabbed a small container of produce off the shelf excitedly, then set it down disappointed. She said defeatedly, "Oh, man, these are just figs." I asked her what she was looking for. She told me that she was working on dessert recipes and really needed some dates. I replied slyly, "If you wanted a date that desperately, you could have just asked." Her face got red, she turned away shyly and took pause for a moment, then retorted, "Well, what would be a good time for you?" I almost stammered from my sheer amazement at my own success. I was medium freaked up at some fancy club in SF and without really realizing where I was going, walked into some VIP section where there were drinks on the table. Women were prettier. I may have seen some drugs, etc. I immediately sit at one of the tables and start making myself a drink. A bouncer comes over shortly after and asked who I was and if I was on the list. Feeling bold, I turned and in my best entitled bored voice said, "Does it look like I'm on the fricking list?" He walked away, and shortly later a group of girls sit down and start drinking with me. Never expected that to work. One time I was at a club pretty drunk and my feet were killing me, so I climbed a low wall that led onto a stage into a VIP section and sat on one of the couches. Everyone in the section was giving me confused looks, but no one said anything to me, so I just sat there until my feet felt better, then left. We had to write essays about other people in pairs, favorite color, favorite food, who do you look up to, etc. in front of class. I did it last minute so it had no flow to it and was just me listing off things. I read it like it was a movie trailer and got an A. Also for a history class we had to write an essay on Mao Zedong and submit via email. I sent an email saying Mao Zedong essay with no attachment because I didn't do it and got an A anyways. I put a postage stamp on a post-it note and posted it to a friend. Address details and stamp on the front. It worked on the back. Technically, you can put the appropriate amount of postage on a potato and mail it through the USPS. It's senior year high school. I'm well past the senior slide of not caring. We have a book report in my history class worth half of our grade. It's 20 essay questions for Tom Brockhaw's Greatest Generation. The night before it's due I start scribbling nonsense that looks like cursive. Occasional I dot an I and cross a T. Once every question I write very clearly World War II, Germany, or machine guns. I get it back a week later with a 96 and good job. Currently have a senior in high school. I wish I had the balls to do something like this. My PhD. Invited a girl to come home with me for coffee and sweets after a date. She totally did, and has been at my place for more than 6 years now. You should probably let her out soon. You've been visited by swining thick boy. Like and comment swing well thick boy and you'll be blessed with many thick woofers in your life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.